right, left. A left, a left. Halt. Right, face.
What are we doing, maggot?
Filming a special Veterans Day episode of Chris the Caregiver, sir.
Open Gaming 10 and roll the opening credits, maggot!
Hi everybody, Chris the Caregiver here, and I want to welcome you to my special Veterans Day episode of Chris the Caregiver. Believe it or not, this episode was totally unplanned, but I'm doing it anyways. So you know what? Let's get this over with. I'm going to give you guys, for Veterans Day, a special Chris the Caregiver interview on this special Chris the Caregiver Veterans Day episode to honor our veterans. So let's get right to it. No, unfortunately, I've never served in the military. I've been a civilian my whole life, basically. But the closest I ever did to serving in the military was being in JROTC in high school. And my rank was basically cadet sergeant first class, which is 3 stripes up and 2 stripes down. I had a great time, but I couldn't enlist in the military because of my health problems and such, which is a shame. Next question. My lowest ranking client that I ever took care of that served in the military? I would say it's a guy who lived in West Fort Worth. He was in the Army and he fought in Vietnam, and he was a sergeant before he actually quit the service and all. Really interesting guy. He met his wife in Vietnam. She's, he's Caucasian, but his wife is Vietnamese, and they met in Vietnam and they got married, and he brought her back to the United States. And this was like 2015, 2016, if I recall right. So, and considering Vietnam was over in the mid-1970s, they've been together for a long, long time. It's pretty interesting. Really nice couple, really great couple to work for. I had a lot of pleasure working for him. And yeah, he lived at home, and yes, I did meal prep for him. So, a really good guy. The next question. My highest ranking client that I've taken care of that I know of, when I knew their ranks, believe it or not, he was a full bird colonel, and he commanded an artillery unit during World War II, during the Battle of the Bulge, which that was a pretty interesting client. I mean, he was pretty well connected. He actually lived across the street from one of the most wealthiest and connected families in all of Fort Worth. But because of HIPAA and everything, I really can't go into too many details about that. But it was a good client to work for. I took good care of him for a good 6 to 8 months. Next question. Yes, I do have relatives that served in the military. The first relative that comes to mind is going to be my uncle by marriage, who married one of my aunts. He spent 4 years in the Marine Corps and was stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. But he got out and he became a handyman, and he later on he actually became a police officer for the city of Bedford, where he is still serving as a police officer and all. And then his son also enlisted in the Marine Corps, but because of how the divisions were when the Marine Corps separated the dividing lines as to who goes where for basic training. They rezoned it to where he didn't go to Camp Lejeune. Instead, they sent him to San Diego to do boot camp for the Marine Corps out there. But and then he actually, my cousin, he actually served in Iraq and spent a lot of time out there. Yeah, but the most interesting relative I had that served in the military is my grandfather, who's retired. He actually served in 2 branches. He started off in the Army, but later on when the Army, you know, because he was in the Army Air Corps, that got branched off and removed from the Army, and then it became the Air Force, what we call the United States Air Force. And my grandfather was, well, he was grandfathered into the United States Air Force, and he fought in 2 wars, the World War II against the Japanese, and then later on in the Korean War. And he almost went to Vietnam, but he retired just a few years shy. But honestly, when he served in 2 wars, I mean, does he really need to go to a 3rd? I kind of can't blame him. The most interesting thing about my grandfather that I knew, believe it or not, he actually earned an air medal despite retiring and being an enlisted personnel, which a lot of people freak out because when you think of the air medal and you think of the Distinguished Flying Cross medals, you think of that being only awarded to pilots who are usually of officer rank in the United States Air Force. But believe it or not, he actually met criteria and earned an air medal. And the reason why that was because he served on a bomber crew on a B-25 bomber on several bombing missions against the Japanese. And he actually almost met criteria to get the Distinguished Flying Cross, but was short a few missions, which was interesting. But yes, that's how he got that award despite being enlisted, because that's how Air Force, and actually that's how Army policy was at the time, which is pretty fair. I mean, he risked his life just the same as the pilots did during those bombing missions, because, you know, if the bomber gets shot down, well, he's going with it. So he's taking a risk just like the pilots are. Well, I enjoyed this interview too. Doing it, it was great. This is a great idea for a Veterans Day episode, a great way to honor our veterans, a great special impromptu episode. I had a lot of fun making it and all. Any final closing words I have would be that I ask all of my audience to please make sure they're subscribed to my channel and that they've turned on the notifications down in that little bell icon that's down there. I finally found it on my YouTube app, so I know it's there. Just enable it to always on. That way when I put something new up, you can watch it. And of course, give me a thumbs up, but not a thumbs down, because I'm gonna cry if you do that. Same thing with negative comments. I'm also gonna cry, and you don't want me to cry. It's terrible. And then the other thing I would love for everybody to do, or I want you guys to do, is to tell all your friends and families, co-workers, that guy you want to ask you out, anybody within sight, to please subscribe to my channel and come check it out. And yes, that's pretty much it. Tell them all about it. Anybody you know is taking care of the elderly, come on down to my channel, man. We're gonna have one big party here and everything. You can be with me spiritually through the camera. And well, I'm gonna go. It's getting late. I'm gonna get some sleep. I gotta get my facial done for in the morning. I've got to do video editing. I've got a special Veterans Day event to take a client to. It's going to be busy. So I'm going to get going and wish you guys a good night. Bye.